Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. After the heroine of this redemption story appeared, I returned the now refined male lead to her. The once mad and wild boy had grown into a refined gentleman. With their talent and beauty perfectly matched, there was naturally no room left for me. I lied to him, saying I was going to buy him osmanthus cake from the north of the city, and left without looking back. But who could have imagined that years later, after being invited back to the country, as soon as I got off the plane, I was dragged into a car. Cease. His voice carried an edge of madness. Where's my osmanthus cake? Chapter 1. Cease. Someone was knocking on the door. I opened my eyes but still felt trapped in the lingering haze of a dream. Eric pushed the door open and came in. Why are you still asleep? Didn't sleep well last night. Instinctively, I pulled the blanket closer and said coldly, "How dare you come in without permission?" The young man froze mid-step. "Sorry, I'll leave now." He left behind a cup of hot milk. After rubbing my temples, I got out of bed without hesitation and poured the milk straight into the sink. The milk was oddly thick and clung to the sink, taking a long time to flow down. Even at 14, Eric was an expert at pretending to be innocent. Back then, his favorite hobby was testing his experimental drugs on others. Chapter 2. This is a redemption love story set in the world of the elite. Eric, the male protagonist, endured an abusive childhood filled with his parents' beatings and scorn. His tragic past shaped his twisted and obsessive nature, though outwardly he appeared polished and charming. I, on the other hand, am Eric's adopted sister, brought into his family without any blood relation. After we grew up, fate arranged for us to meet again and live under the same roof. The first time we met, he gave me a bouquet of flowers. That very night, a venomous snake slithered out from the flowers. Chapter 3. Where did you catch the snake? At the breakfast table, I asked casually as if making small talk. Eric's expression didn't change. He maintained his composed demeanor. What are you talking about, sis? I don't understand. Although he was 4 years younger than me, he was already taller. When he said this, he blinked his eyes, looking entirely innocent. I smiled, got up, and brought out a pot of soup from the kitchen. You're right, you're still so young. This is some soup I made this morning. It's good for you. As I spoke, I laid a bowl for him. Thank you, sis. Eric smiled sweetly. With his gold-rimmed glasses, almond-shaped eyes, straight nose, and thin lips, his features were already strikingly handsome, even though he hadn't fully grown into them yet. I watched him take a sip of the soup and suddenly chuckled. Those glasses suit you well. He paused. Is sis complimenting me? Yes, I kept smiling. They make you look so obedient. Eric, let me ask you something. Do soups made with venomous snakes contain poison? Chapter 4. The next second, he knocked over the bowl of soup in his hand. The steaming soup spilled all over the floor, with a few drops splashing onto him. Feigning surprise, I asked, "How could you be so careless? Did it burn you?" No. Eric took a deep breath, seemingly holding something back. Thanks. I'll go change my clothes. You eat on your own. Then he stormed upstairs in a huff. Sitting at the dining table, I sighed with a smile, idly stirring the soup with my spoon. Still young, can't hide anything. Loves experimenting with chemicals yet doesn't even know that soup made with venomous snakes isn't poisonous. Chapter 5. Eric and I go to schools very close to each other. I attend a university and he's in a university's affiliated high school. As a result, we usually commute together. Hurry up, you're going to be late. I waved at him from the car. A fleeting shadow of malice crossed Eric's face before his usual gentle and harmless expression returned. We sat in the back seat, the driver having already raised the partition, leaving us unseen. From the corner of my eye, I noticed the smile vanish from Eric's lips and I couldn't help but curl mine into a smirk. Little Eric. Leaning toward him suddenly, I whispered, "You've still got a lot to learn." His lips tightened into a straight line, likely wondering how I could see through him. Pulling out a snake-shaped brooch, I tossed it into his hand and chuckled. You're still young, you can't hide your tail yet. Chapter 6. I awakened the day before I met Eric. Through a dream, I learned the entire plot. Because this is a redemption story, Eric's abusive childhood left him twisted and vengeful. Bullying me and stirring up trouble were part of the standard setup. Before meeting the heroine, he'd turned this household upside down until she saw through his facade and redeemed him. But as luck would have it, I am today's version of a modern parent. Crazy. Mentally disturbed. All that translates to being disobedient in my book. A kid in a perpetual bad mood, probably faking it. A good spanking solves everything. Chapter 7. The next day, Eric's gaze toward me changed. Like a snake that had been lying in wait, now carefully observing its prey, ready to strike. Come eat. I smiled warmly, my eyes curving into crescents. Eric, yesterday's soup was such an accident. I've decided not to cook anymore, so stop looking at me like that. You're not afraid of snakes? He snorted coldly and sat down. Still, I kept smiling at him. There's nothing I'm afraid of. Really? Eric's face was unreadable. Then I'll try one thing at a time and see what scares you. Sure. Lowering my gaze, I suddenly added an unrelated comment. When I was in the orphanage, forget snakes. I've had centipedes, cockroaches, and slugs on my bed. Your family's been so kind to me. I haven't seen those critters in ages. Go ahead, bring them on. Let's see if I'm still afraid of them. Chapter 8. Eric's parents are always busy. Their marriage was a union of two powerful families, but under one roof were two hearts that stayed miles apart, each prioritizing their own interests. Eric was one of their rare shared interests, and I was the one they trusted to take care of him. So when I got a call from Eric's homeroom teacher, I wasn't surprised at all. Hello, is this Eric's sister? What did surprise me was the teacher's serious tone. This child has sent a classmate to the hospital after beating him up. The school leadership is alarmed, and he's facing disciplinary action. Chapter 9. To be honest, Eric is a master at keeping up appearances. He's been a model student since childhood, the kind who draws endless praise from teachers and classmates alike, with descriptions like polite, mature, and well-mannered. Even if this little venomous snake despised someone enough to secretly poison them with a rash-inducing toxin, no one ever suspected him. But this time was different. Why did you assault your classmate? In the office, only Eric stood there. The classmate he beat up had already been sent to the hospital. I had seen the photos. His face was bruised and swollen, and his body looked even worse. It was obvious he hadn't held back at all. The homeroom teacher slammed the desk. Do you know that if you'd hit him any harder, you could have killed him? Eric remained motionless, his expression blank as he glanced at us. That glance, it sent an inexplicable chill down my spine. It was a side of him I had never seen before. The teacher was about to explode again, but in the next second I stood up, my body moving faster than my brain. Teacher, let me speak to him alone. There must be some misunderstanding. Our Eric isn't a violent person. Chapter 10. Why did you hit him? This was the third time I'd asked him that question. Eric still didn't answer, his face cold as he turned to look out the window. A complete communication breakdown. I was furious at this rebellious brat. Not going to talk? Fine, whatever. I'm leaving. Let's see if you can survive your parents when they find out. Eric's parents were extremely strict with him. Being first in class was the bare minimum, and any breach of discipline would earn him a severe beating. I rubbed my forehead, silently wondering how he hadn't already been beaten to death by them. Are you worried about me? Eric suddenly spoke, lowering his head to stare at me with a strangely obedient expression. Shouldn't you wish I were dead? I froze for a moment. As much as I might want to say that, he was still only 14. Considering the kind of upbringing he'd had, it was impressive enough that he could even pretend to be a good student. If I truly wished you were dead, I would have told your parents everything already, I sighed. Besides, you've stopped throwing venomous insects into my room, haven't you? Chapter 11. The next day I brought Eric back to school. The homeroom teacher was still fuming, and her anger extended to me. What exactly is going on? Is Eric going to apologize or not? Where are his parents? Why is it always you? What use are you? That classmate is still in the hospital getting 4 drips. Eric's hand clenched into a fist. I noticed and reached out to take his hand, gently rubbing it to calm him, though I didn't realize his body had stiffened at the touch. Teacher, you should be thankful that the student is just on in 4, I said with a calm smile, sliding a USB drive across the desk. Otherwise, if it were me, I might have beaten him to permanent disability. Chapter 12. The USB contained an audio recording taken by a female classmate who witnessed the entire incident. After school, Eric stayed behind to clean the classroom as part of his duties when that classmate came looking for trouble. Well, look who's cleaning for once, Mr. Fake Perfection. We were just saying you, a parentless stray, were probably born to be smacked around like a cleaning tool. Eric's parents kept a low profile. Not only did they refuse to send him to a private school, but they also never appeared in public. His clothes were old, and the tasks they set for him were rigidly strict. If he couldn't complete them, he'd get beaten. Over time, rumors spread in school that he was an orphan. Beatings were Eric's ultimate sore spot. By the end of the recording, the teacher's face turned red and then green. I held Eric's hand and coldly declared, "I demand a public apology to Eric from you, that student, and their parents. Don't say I didn't warn you. Our family may be rich and low profile, but we hold grudges." Chapter 13. Laura. Eric knocked on the door. Without turning around, I replied, "Come in. What is it?" He entered, holding a few dewy white roses in his hands, looking a little hesitant. "The roses in the garden have bloomed, so I cut some for you to put in your room's vase," he said awkwardly. I raised an eyebrow and turned to look at him. Eric placed the flowers into the vase. The white roses were beautiful. "Why aren't you calling me sis anymore?" I asked suddenly. "I remember when I first came here, you couldn't stop calling me that." Eric froze, clearly flustered. I smiled again. "And why aren't there any snakes hidden in today's flowers? Stop tormenting the poor garden snakes all the time. They must be tired of your antics." Chapter 14. The boy had never learned how to apologize. Freshly replaced roses in the room, steaming hot milk on the dining table, and even a mysterious black card that somehow ended up in my bag. "Keep it yourself." I tossed the black card onto the table. "Your parents gave it to you, not me. How do you think they'd react if they saw it with me?" Eric lowered his head slightly, pursing his lips. He looked very obedient. I sighed. "I haven't even held a grudge against you for the things you've done before. I never said I was apologizing. Teenagers in their awkward phase are always contrary." He stuttered a little as he said this, his tone adorably prideful. After that, he added one more comment. "You should buy some prettier clothes. You don't look like you belong to our family." I couldn't help but laugh. So that afternoon I went to the mall. Just as I was about done shopping, someone tapped me on the shoulder. It was a cute girl. Not stunning, but somehow captivating in a way that made it hard to look away. "Hello." Her smile carried a hint of appraisal as she said, "Miss Supporting Character, may I ask how well you've trained my Eric?" Chapter 15. Returning this to you. I came back home with an armful of shopping bags and tossed the black card onto the desk. Eric didn't take it. Instead, he glanced at the spoils of war behind me. "Do all women shop like this?" I raised an eyebrow. "What, feeling the pinch now?" "No," he averted his gaze, his tone suddenly softening. "You didn't bring a bodyguard. If you couldn't carry it all, you could have brought someone to help." "How did you know I didn't bring a bodyguard?" Eric paused mid-sentence. I couldn't help but laugh as I ruffled his hair. "Next time you go shopping, let me come and help you carry things." The awkward teenager turned his head to the side stiffly, replying, "We'll see next time." Eric is, after all, still just a child. A child who's genuinely loved. How bad could he possibly turn out? Chapter 16. The next day, I received a call from Eric's homeroom teacher. After learning Eric's true identity, the teacher's tone became noticeably more polite. I've already explained the previous misunderstanding to the classmates' parents. After discussions, we've decided to issue a public apology to Eric during today's flag-raising ceremony. Could you come in place of Eric's parents? At the time, Eric was sitting beside me, listening with an expressionless face. I smiled. "Sure, I'll come." "He's being so polite to you. Did you put something else on that USB drive you gave him that day?" Eric asked. I slowly put down my phone and sighed. "You're so clever, Eric. That snobby teacher of yours probably made things difficult for you in the past, so I found evidence of him secretly accepting bribes from parents. I backed it up on the USB as well, just to have leverage." Eric stayed silent for about half a minute. Just as I thought he wouldn't respond, I felt a warm touch on top of my head. "Got it," he said, messing up my hair on purpose, likely as payback for me ruffling his earlier. "Stop calling me little brother." Chapter 17. At the flag-raising ceremony, Eric and I stood at the front. He was wearing the new clothes I bought for him, looking clean and handsome, with an aloofness that kept everyone at a distance. On stage, the classmate was reading out his apology letter to Eric. When he finished, he even had to bow as if Eric were some kind of high-ranking leader. "Quite the honor, Mr. Eric," I teased in a low voice. Eric didn't respond, but his hand tugged playfully at the bunny ears on the hood of my sweatshirt. My heart skipped a beat, and I instinctively glanced into the crowd below. What I saw caught me off guard, not any classmates but someone else entirely. It was the heroine I'd run into at the mall that day, standing off to the side with a bright smile. She mouthed the words, "Laura, well done." Then she turned and left. Chapter 18. Life passed by uneventfully. Eric, like any other high schooler, rarely had holidays and stayed up late at home doing homework. Occasionally, I'd catch him sneaking into his underground lab to work on his concoctions. "If you keep doing things that endanger public safety, I'll have the cops come and confiscate all your junk," I threatened, cornering him at the doorway. By now, he was almost an adult, towering over me by a full head. He looked down at me, showing no signs of guilt. I was wrong. He sounded serious, but his hand at some point had grabbed the edge of my shirt. "Bend down a little," I said, feeling oddly unsettled. "I can't hear you." Eric obediently leaned down. The distance between us closed in an instant. His sharp gaze locked onto mine, and without his glasses, there was a certain intensity about him, almost predatory. But the next second I abruptly pulled him closer, our noses nearly touching. He seemed caught off guard. "Laura." I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled back his shirt. "What's with these bruises?" Chapter 19. Eric is now in his senior year of high school. It's been over 2 years since I last met the heroine. That's the male lead's black card, right? He treats you so well. That day at the mall, she asked me. According to the plot, wasn't he supposed to torment you until you wished you were dead? And what about you? Why are you showing up now? I watched her warily, taking a few steps back to maintain distance. The heroine's name is Cecilia. Just like in the book's description, her appearance is innocent, not as strikingly beautiful as the supporting character, but she has an aura that draws attention wherever she goes. Of course, because I've awakened too. Cecilia's smile was sweet, but for some reason, I found it impossible to feel close to her. "Laura," she emphasized my name. "I have no interest in dealing with a rebellious kid." I raised my eyes. "What do you want?" "Oh, come now, don't be so guarded." She chuckled a tinkling laugh. "You know how it is, there's no escaping the plot. We both have to follow it. Eric will still belong to me in the end, and you can't change the fate of being the supporting character. If that's the case, your job is to train him for me. It's also your way of repaying the favor to Eric's family." Chapter 20. Eric began avoiding me. He wouldn't tell me about the bruises on his body, and I had no luck prying it out of him. I found myself at a loss for what to do. We ended up in a cold war. Until one day I received a call. The voice on the other end was familiar, sweet but hollow. Cecilia laughed through the receiver. "It's been 2 years. Let's meet, Laura." Truthfully, I never really knew who Cecilia was. All I knew was that she was the heroine, I was the supporting character, and she seemed to be around our age. Beyond that, I knew nothing about her. On the contrary, she knew a lot about me. "Why haven't you visited the orphanage?" Winter had already set in. The waiter brought over a hot coffee, and Cecilia blew on the cup slowly before asking, "Or did you really think that staying at Eric's house for a few years would make you a phoenix rising from the ashes?" "It's none of your business," I replied coldly. She laughed. "You don't know anything about me." Cecilia had a much greater grasp of the plot than I did. She not only knew about my background but also appeared just when I thought I had Eric under control, assigning me tasks. I really knew nothing about her. "Are you so sure that Eric will obey you unquestioningly?" Cecilia suddenly burst out laughing. She put her coffee down, her eyes curving as she smiled. "If he doesn't fall in love with me, the heroine, is he supposed to fall for you?" Chapter 21. After 2 weeks of my Cold War with Eric, I finally had some time to return home. I decided to try and get a sense of where his feelings stood. Since this was a redemption story, the moment the heroine's task of redeeming him fell on me, the entire narrative should have shifted. The factor that changes the story is the protagonist's inclinations. I refused to believe that a story with awakened characters could still follow a predetermined path. But I also wasn't sure if he felt anything for me. Beep beep beep. Beep beep beep. It was already dark, but Eric hadn't come back. I called him 3 times, but no one answered. There were less than 6 months until the college entrance exams. Even if he stayed back for duties, he would have come home early to study. Something was off today. I thought of the bruises on his body again and grabbed my keys, ready to head to the school to look for him. Bang! But the next second, the door slammed open as if it had been hit with something heavy. I stood at the top of the stairs, frozen in place when I saw the figure behind the door. It was Eric. The heavy object that had slammed into the door was Eric, kicked hard by his father. Blood stained the corner of his mouth, and his face was pale. He collapsed to the floor almost powerlessly. I didn't even have time to rush forward to help him. Then I saw Cecilia running out from behind his father. She covered her mouth, looking like a helpless little white flower. Please calm down. Eric didn't mean it. Chapter 22. I didn't know what had happened. All I remembered was Cecilia's frail, pitiful demeanor and Eric lying on the ground, barely conscious. When Eric woke up again, it was in the hospital. You're awake. Eric had slept for an entire day and night. His left hand was broken, his body covered in bruises. When he opened his eyes, there was still a foggy daze in them, as if he might shatter in the next moment. I held his hand tightly, though my own hands wouldn't stop trembling as I kept checking his condition. I'll go get the nurse. Don't cry. Eric's fingertips brushed the corner of my eye, coming away slightly wet. I hadn't even realized I was crying. You've always hated crying, haven't you? I turned my head away, sniffing. You saw wrong. He smiled faintly but winced immediately as the movement pulled at his injuries. I pressed the call button for the nurse and waited for them to come before I managed to ask him with difficulty, what exactly happened? Chapter 23. My conversation with Cecilia that day ended on an unpleasant note for her. Before leaving, she said, even if he falls in love with someone else, he can only choose me. There's no way to defy the plot. I always thought the plot was just the inevitable coincidences forced by the book. What I hadn't anticipated was that Cecilia would be Eric's father's ideal choice for a marriage alliance. Chapter 24. Is there anything else that feels uncomfortable? After the nurse left, I poured Eric a cup of warm water and fed him some with a spoon. His bright eyes stared straight at me, unblinking. If I hurt my hand, you'll always feed me like this, won't you? For some reason, his gaze seemed a bit intense. There was something strange about his words, too. Yes, I said, pressing my lips together. But still, don't hurt yourself, I can't bear it. Eric seemed taken aback by my response, visibly stunned. I sighed and fed him another spoonful. Why didn't you tell me earlier? That classmate wasn't wrong about you. He didn't say anything. Feigning anger, I said. Still not talking? Are you really waiting for me to see you beaten to a pulp by your father before you say anything? 2 seconds of silence passed and finally he spoke. That bastard took photos of you in secret and spread rumors. Chapter 25. I never imagined that Eric would go through all this because of me. That classmate wasn't willing to back down, but he also knew he couldn't fight directly. So he realized he could use me. He photoshopped your pictures onto little cards and threatened me, saying if I didn't kneel to him, he'd spread them everywhere because after that public apology, the whole school knew you were from a university. I know how damaging something like that can be for a girl. Even if we had the truth on our side, I didn't want you to suffer even the slightest bit because you're my sister. So for more than 2 years, Eric endured all of it for me, hiding his injuries. Until a few days ago when he finally smashed that guy's phone and took the USB where he had backed up my photos, that was when he was finally free. He beat that guy up and threatened him with the concoctions from the underground lab. It was supposed to be flawless. But somehow his father found out. He destroyed the underground lab and broke Eric's bones. Chapter 26. With only a month left until the college entrance exams, Eric stayed in the hospital to study and planned to go directly from there to the exams. His hand wouldn't recover in time for the exams, but thankfully it was his left hand that was injured, not his right. When I pushed open the door to his hospital room, Eric wasn't there. Through the window, I saw Cecilia pushing his wheelchair in the garden outside, basking in the sunlight. Eric was smiling. The atmosphere between them seemed good. I felt a strange tightness in my chest and turned my head away. Laura. Sir. I quickly turned around, bowing slightly in greeting. Why are you here? Not busy, just came to see him. Eric's father looked scholarly and refined, completely different from the image of the man who had acted so violently that day. We stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the pair in the garden below. Cecilia has been looking after him a lot these past few days while you weren't here, he said suddenly. She's got a good personality, knows how to speak well, and she's much more agreeable than that kid. They're quite suited for each other. So I'm planning on arranging their engagement after Eric graduates. I lowered my gaze and nodded. I agree. You've been with Eric for a long time and it's the right time. When he graduates, you should prepare to go abroad for your studies. Laura, you know that my wife and I both appreciate you. The family will need you in the future, but Eric doesn't. He spoke with piercing clarity. He knew everything and was simply reminding me. All right, I understand. After he left, I kept looking at Cecilia and Eric in the garden. There were faint smiles on both of their faces. He seemed to have never been so gentle with any other girl besides me. So this is what it means to be the heroine. Chapter 27. The college entrance exams ended quickly. On the day they ended, I went to pick him up with a bouquet of flowers. Laura. Eric's left hand was still inconvenient, but that didn't stop him from hugging me. There was a clean lemon scent on him. He smiled as he took the flowers from me, looking happier than I had ever seen him. Shall we go out to eat? Did he know that he'd be engaged now that the exams were over? I hesitated for a moment when my phone suddenly lit up. It was Cecilia. She said. 5 p.m. flight. I'll see you off. It didn't matter. He probably didn't know that as soon as the exams were over I'd be leaving. Chapter 28. Laura, why are you daydreaming again? This was the third time Eric had asked me that question. Throughout the meal I had kept losing focus. Sorry. I poured myself a glass of water and lied without changing my expression. Didn't sleep well last night. Why? Worried about your college entrance exams. Eric laughed. He seemed very happy today. Happier than any other day before. Then tonight you can finally sleep well. It was now 2 in the afternoon. To catch the flight, Cecilia had told me to leave by 3. Once we finished eating, Eric and I stood on the street. Because we both stood out, people frequently glanced our way. Young man, your girlfriend is beautiful. Would you like to buy a flower? An elderly woman selling flowers approached us. I was stunned. Before I could refuse, Eric had already paid. Just one, please. Thank you. By the time I realized, I was already holding a white rose with dew. Only one, I thought. With his demeanor, he'd buy them all. But Eric just smiled and shook his head. One is enough for me. Chapter 29. Eric was very happy today. Even though I didn't know why he was so happy. Laura. Let's go to the North Garden today. I'll go buy you something to eat. I cut him off. Eric's smile faded. Didn't we just eat? That sweet-scented osmanthus cake from the North District. I've wanted it for a long time. I smiled at him, holding his arm gently. I've been wanting to bring you some for a long time. I want to do it today. Perhaps it was the sincerity I managed to fake. Eric pursed his lips and nodded. It was 2:55. Turning around across the street, I saw the car parked by the roadside. In the driver's seat sat Cecilia. I held the white rose tightly in my hand and got in the car. Cecilia glanced at me. You can only take away one rose. I didn't respond. I simply leaned back in the seat, slowly using the flower to cover my eyes. As the unimportant supporting character in this redemption story, one rose was enough to buy the end of these 3 years between him and me. Chapter 30. I studied a finance-related major. Though Eric's father was violent, his status and wealth ensured that I completed my studies without a hitch and graduated from a world-renowned university. 5 years had passed by this point, I finally had time to go to the bank and check on that card that regularly received deposits. This was the card Eric's father gave me to use for living expenses while I was abroad. But I hardly ever used it, preferring to work part-time jobs instead. I only touched it when absolutely necessary, which is why today I found out that no money had been deposited into this card for a long time. Could you check which domestic bank the last payment to this card came from? The bank clerk, a Chinese person, joked with me. Since you have time to look at where the transfer came from, why not go back and visit? In the 5 years I'd been abroad, I had never gone back once. More than that, to completely cut myself off from Eric and Cecilia's destined relationship, I changed my number and deleted all their contact information. That was Eric's father's idea. Honestly, aside from this card, it seemed there were no other ties between me and Eric's family. Back then, Eric's father said that when the time came, he would have someone notify me abroad to return. Sending me away was for Eric and Cecilia's relationship. Bringing me back was to ensure that his investment in me had value. Yet here I was, without a single notification. Chapter 31. I decided to buy a ticket and return home. 5 years had passed, and Eric should have graduated from university by now, gotten engaged, and then married right after graduation. Cecilia skipped the redemption phase and directly achieved her happy ending with him. And now, with me returning, I truly became Eric's sister, his helper. While packing, my landlady asked me, "You're taking so much with you. Are you coming back?" I thought for a moment and replied, "I will. But I also want to take these back to see my homeland again." As I spoke, I tossed a small bottle into the bag. The bottle held a stack of dried flower petals. It was from the rose Eric had given me 5 years ago. Chapter 32. Are you all right, ma'am? As soon as I got off the plane, I went straight to the restroom to throw up. I got airsick, so even while I was abroad, I rarely traveled, let alone dated. I barely socialized. I waved my hand. "I'm fine, thank you." Dragging my suitcase out of the airport, I stood at the curb for a while, trying to figure out how to use a domestic ride-hailing app. Honk honk. A taxi pulled up. Frustrated, I simply got in. "Where to?" "E-Group Tower." "Do you know how to get there?" Chapter 33. Because of my airsickness, I kept my eyes closed to rest during the ride. Right when I got into the car, I noticed there was a white rose placed inside. This made me instinctively glance at the driver through the rearview mirror. He looked quite young, wearing a black baseball cap and a black mask, and didn't talk much. After his initial greeting, he didn't say another word. I closed my eyes and leaned back in the seat to rest, until the car came to a stop, and when I opened my eyes, there was no noise from the road around me. My heart skipped a beat. The surroundings outside were strangely familiar. The suburbs, a villa with a view of the backyard golf course. We're here. At that moment I had a feeling. I turned to look at the driver's seat. The young man had taken off his hat and mask, revealing pale skin that made his eyes look even redder. "Sister, why did you take so long to come back?" Chapter 34. My mind went blank. I had never imagined I would reunite with Eric like this so suddenly. I had already convinced myself many times that I was just the supporting character in this story. I helped Cecilia redeem the male lead, completed my mission, and repaid Eric's family. So when she reappeared, I stepped back, fulfilling their perfect ending, and the story ended there. I never considered what would happen after the ending. "Where's the sweet-scented osmanthus cake you promised?" Eric forced a smile. "That shop in the North District closed before my college entrance exams." He had gone looking for me. I didn't know what to do. I turned my head, thinking I could ignore his reddened eyes. "Please don't cry." That was what Eric said to me the day he woke up after being beaten unconscious. But here I was, abandoning him again and then coming back to make him cry once more. "Eric, don't." "Enough." He suddenly got out of the car. Then he yanked open my door, taking something out from behind him, and roughly pulled me out. Click. My right hand was handcuffed, the other end attached to Eric's wrist. His voice was still choked with tears. "Laura, you're never leaving a second time in this life." Chapter 35. It was all so sudden. Even after sitting in my old bedroom from years ago, everything still felt surreal. There was a red mark around my right wrist left by the handcuffs just now. Eric saw it, so he took them off and angrily threw the handcuffs into the trash. "Stupid thing. He was scolding the handcuffs. I was both amused and sad when I looked at him again. My nose stung and I felt like crying. He had grown taller. 5 years, enough time to turn a boy into a man. Eric's hair was shorter, neatly trimmed. He was dressed in a black shirt, and the sports watch on his wrist had been replaced with a high-end $1 million model. Laura. He came over and hugged me. From behind, he held me tightly, burying his head and nuzzling while inhaling deeply, like a big dog that had been wronged. You let go first. He ignored me. No matter how I coaxed him, nothing worked. All he kept repeating was, "You're going to lie to me again." I had nothing to say until someone knocked on the door, breaking the warmth of the moment. I heard the person address Eric as boss. That was what Eric's father's assistant used to call him. Chapter 36. Hello. I wanted to ask about Eric's marital status. Oh, come on, ma'am, what kind of joke is that? You're the future wife, aren't you? Sir just brought you back. He's been longing for you for years. He must already be preparing the wedding. The young housekeeper kept blessing us. I paused, speechless. No one here mentioned Cecilia. 5 years ago, Cecilia's engagement had been a sure thing. In the original storyline, it was mentioned that everyone favored her. Even the staff liked her very much. But now, looking down from the balcony, I saw Eric in the courtyard discussing work with his assistant. What exactly was going on? I would have to ask him. Chapter 37. Sister, have some of this. Eric kept putting food onto my plate. His fingers were long and defined, skillfully holding the chopsticks and serving me food. I hesitated for a moment before finally asking, "Where is Cecilia?" The atmosphere turned silent. Eric didn't say a word. Or rather, "What about your father?" "Dead." This time he answered quickly. "What?" "Dead. Cerebral hemorrhage, failed resuscitation." My eyes widened. In my memory, his father exercised regularly. His life shouldn't have ended so soon. They all suspected I did it, Eric added unexpectedly. What do you think, sister? I. Yes, I suppose it was my doing. He was shockingly frank. I pressed my lips together, unsure what to say. But then Eric suddenly smiled. He tried to hit me again, but that time I fought back. He couldn't beat me and ended up getting so angry that he died. Sister, would you like to guess where Cecilia went after my father died? Chapter 38. When I left the country, Cecilia was the only one to see me off at the airport. Right before I left, she suddenly called out to me, "Guess how things will be between Eric and me when you come back." I didn't turn around. "Very happy." She smiled, then came close to whisper in my ear, "Just like that day in the hospital when you saw me pushing him to sunbathe. By that time, we'll probably be pushing a child around on a walk too." Chapter 39. Eric didn't confine me. He couldn't bear to treat me that way, but he wouldn't let me leave the house. The door to the basement was locked. When I arrived, the lock on the door wasn't exactly new, but it was very clean without any dust. It seemed like it had been opened many times recently. "Oh, what are you doing here?" The housekeeper rushed over as soon as she saw me. "Please don't come here. It's not clean." "What's inside?" In my memory, it used to be Eric's laboratory, but it was smashed by his father. The housekeeper wouldn't say. "This isn't a place you should be. Has he been here recently?" Unable to refuse, she finally nodded. And when I left, I already had my answer. The beast only obeys its trainer, not the showman putting on a performance. Chapter 40. Sister. Eric was drunk. When he returned, he smelled of alcohol, holding on to me and refusing to let go. "Let go." "No, if I let go, you'll run away again." I heard the sob in his voice. Why hadn't I noticed before how much he loved to cry? I sighed. "You're keeping such a close watch on me now. How could I run?" He didn't reply. I looked at him and suddenly an idea came to mind. "Sister, you. Be good." My hand had already undone his shirt collar. Eric hadn't changed. When drunk, he was still obedient, allowing me to do as I pleased, without resistance. Yesterday, I saw a maid outfit in the wardrobe, most likely a gift from someone trying to curry favor with him, with a new set of handcuffs placed on top. This boy grew up to be really unruly. "Why are you undressing me?" His suit was thrown to the floor. I tied the maid outfit's ribbon around his neck, casually saying, "Because I missed you." Eric stared at me unblinking. "Do you love me?" I looked down at him. "It doesn't matter if you love me or not." He suddenly buried his head against me. "I love you. I only love you. I want Cecilia gone. I don't want them stopping me." There was no one left who could stop him now. I sighed and gently hugged him. Who said I don't love you? Chapter 41. I managed to retrieve the key from Eric's clothes. He was drunk, fast asleep, and passed out in the bedroom. Creak. This basement door, which had been here for over a decade, was being opened by me for the first time. I thought I would see Cecilia, but I hadn't expected what. I found a wall full of photos. My certificates, my photos, the few dresses I had ever worn. In the photos, it was me, arriving here for the first time, starting to get used to gardening in the yard, cooking noodles for Eric in the kitchen. I knew that one of the housekeepers especially liked taking pictures of us. I just never expected that after I left, Eric would guard all my photos by himself, frozen in time like that for so long. On the floor lay a tattered open notebook. I picked it up and looked at one of the pages. Laura. Countless times. All of them were my name. Chapter 42. I found Cecilia in the basement compartment. This place was dark, with not even a rat daring to enter. "You." "It's me." She was sitting on a small bed. Heavy iron chains were around her wrists and ankles, her whole body much thinner, her eyes empty as though she had been kept here for a very, very long time. You're the... I'm Laura." She briefly processed that. Then suddenly she burst into laughter. Good, you're back. Let me go. She seemed to have forgotten that she was the radiant heroine, and I was merely the supporting character paving her way. The story hadn't reached its intended ending, but had instead plunged into this irreparable abyss. "Cecilia, aren't you the heroine? Where is your halo?" She stared blankly at me. Then, like a frightened mental patient, she kept retreating to the corner. "No, I'm not. No. I'm not the heroine. Laura is. I remembered the information I had finally obtained from Eric's assistant that day. 5 years ago, Eric's father had died unexpectedly. After that, Cecilia disappeared and the engagement was called off. So it wasn't just a disappearance. It was Eric who forced her to disappear. Chapter 43. The night I saw Cecilia, I had another dream. After 5 years, I once again saw the storyline. But this time there was nothing in the storyline. No young Eric.
No bilatid Cecilje.
Not even me, none of the interactions between the characters. I only saw 3 lines. Heroine. Laura, hero, Eric. Collapsing storyline being repaired. Punishing interfering character. Cecilia. Ending hint. Love the one you love. Chapter 44. Sister. Eric woke up. Just like the first day, he came in with a cup of milk, staring at me without blinking. Only this time, he was still wearing the ill-fitting maid outfit I had put on him last night. I sighed and said, "Change your clothes. You don't like it?" Eric held my hand, pressing his face against my palm, his voice soft. "Sister, I'm willing to do anything you want me to." He looked completely innocent and harmless. I gently stroked his face and coaxed him in a low voice. "Then how about letting Cecilia go?" His body stiffened, and in the next second I threw myself into his arms. "Because I've come back. I won't leave you again." Chapter 45. Cecilia had already been driven insane by Eric's torment. Because of that, he also learned about our so-called storyline, the supporting character. Cecilia had deceived us. The storyline was meant to be written by the protagonists, and thus she ended up with a fitting consequence. I don't believe in any storyline. His voice was so resolute. "Laura, if it's not you, I don't want anyone." I had never felt this kind of happiness so clearly, the feeling of being resolutely chosen. Now there was no one who could stand in our way. Chapter 46. Cecilia had become practically a madwoman. Sometimes she would laugh hysterically. Other times she would cry loudly. Her intelligence was like that of a 3-year-old. Eric sent her to a welfare home where the caregivers would give her work to do. The day before she was sent away, we were in the midst of preparing for our engagement. "Do you pity her?" Eric asked me. I shook my head. "She's not worth it. These past 5 years had all been her doing." So her fate was not tragic, it was well-deserved. Chapter 47. On the day of our engagement, Madame returned from the temple. After the death of Eric's father, she had a sudden realization and moved to a temple, saying she wanted to atone for his sins. She had always known about the abuse Eric suffered as a child. Laura, come here. Madame put a bracelet on my wrist. She grabbed my hand and smiled. Congratulations, you weren't deceived by the storyline. My eyes widened. Could it be that you? Shoo. Madame smiled. It's not me. It's the one who passed away. The hero who wasn't redeemed. The next generation would have been so tragic. That's why Eric's father unleashed all his anger on Eric. And the madam, just a supporting character, bore a heavy sin. Eric's future is now in your hands. Eric. A bright future, safe and sound for years to come. With me in his future, tragedy would never repeat itself. Chapter 48. Sister. Eric was holding a bouquet of flowers. This time they weren't white roses, they were the most passionate red. We're already engaged, and you're still calling me sister? The villa garden was bustling with activity today. The Eric that everyone saw as moody and unpredictable seemed entirely different today, smiling from ear to ear. I don't know. He smiled softly. Do you remember when we first met? I called you sister. I do, and you also threw a snake at me. Eric leaned in. Then today, let's see it through to the end. From now on, no more sister. Fiancé, can I call you that? Of course you can. The sun today was warm, as if our burning joy had spread even to the white clouds. Eric bowed his head and placed the engagement ring on my finger with reverence. I smiled and asked what he was thinking. I was thinking about what it would be like on the day I truly marry you. On this day of blooming flowers and chirping birds. Every one of our days felt like a sincere confession of love.